Scrambling became an issue, I guess, in the 80s because people began to get those dishes. And, it was, I would like to think, it was my first introduction to Al Gore. And Al was a senator from a rural state. And I thought that his stance, there was a hearing in front of the Commerce Committee, and he was behind the people with the satellite dishes. And I thought it was a bit of a fake issue. I thought he was pandering to that electorate because you couldn't be licensing things from studios, paying, and then having your service go out free. To think that it was some kind of, you know, like the electric company is a
Utility.
yeah, a name for it. Like movies are not a utility in the country. And where the pressure came from was that the cable industry hadn't done the rural areas yet. So states like Tennessee had everyone saying, we want cable, we want movies, and I'm putting up a satellite dish, and they're scrambling. So we won out. I had a terrible hearing with Al Gore in Washington, which every time I met him after that for 10 years, we would reminisce a little bit. And the cable industry always thought of Senator Gore as an enemy of the cable industry. It was sort of a tough hearing because he represented the rural interests in Tennessee and other states in a sense. And cable had not really come to the rural areas. In some cases, cable first came to suburbs and rural, not, sometimes the cities were more difficult, but cable had not gone the whole country. And it was actually a tribute to people who said, we want cable. So what took place was that in those days, it were large dishes, not like the dishes you see today. And there were operators who leased these dishes, sold these dishes, made little cable deals with program providers. And we were, since it was the cable operator's franchise, we would give back a percentage of what we were paid to provide the service to these people. And that was one of the things that Gore was hammering away at, like this was some kind of bribe. And so it was tough. And at one point, I said to him, I said, you're talking to me like I'm from the New York City construction industry, that this is a hearing on corruption or something. And I don't appreciate that or see that. Anyway, ultimately, and I don't know the year when it finally came around, that the satellite industry, which had evolved quite a bit from those early days, in the telecommunications bill, any programming service that went up on satellite for the cable industry had to also be sold to the satellite industry. So that was allowed a competitor in against the cable operators, but also allowed cable and HBO, all of the programming services, to grow in addition to what had happened in cable. We had pretty much tapped out in cable. Anyone who has had cable for 10 years and hadn't taken HBO was not going to take HBO. But there were new customers who either hadn't had cable, didn't want to buy cable, wanted satellite, who were brand new to the experience. And so that was a tremendous lift to the HBO business. And that started in the late 80s, early 90s.